Over the course of a year, we have many, many thousands who come through the museum. But the first Saturday of each month is a special day when we have live lectures. Normally, I deliver 9/10 of those live lectures, but beginning today with Dr. Bergman, who comes the first Saturday of every November every year, has for what, 5 years or so?
I think so, yeah.
And more coming. The next year will be Lecture from the Champions. So we're going to have champions from Fiji, world champions from Fiji. We're going to have major academic scholars. We're going to have debaters. We're going to have some of our finest lecturers come during this year. So I think I have one slot left where the director will be delivering a lecture. The director is my wife's husband. And I think I have one slot for him, but probably there will be someone who will want to come anyway because they just like to be around good people. This afternoon, we're especially privileged to hear our most prolific writer in creation science. He's published almost 50 books, almost all of them technical in one sort or another. He's a former lecturer in medical industry. He is a former college and university and hospital professor, has 9 college degrees in science, 2 of them PhDs, has traveled with us to Fiji, and actually he is one of the most published scholars in the world. How many libraries in the world, how many languages has your work been published in?
13, and in 65 different countries.
65 different countries,
Right.
13 languages. How many libraries that you know of?
About over I think almost 3,000.
The last thing I'll mention in this introduction is that Dr. Jerry Bergman, some years ago, was an agnostic, an atheist, and he actually wrote most of the material for Madalyn Murray O'Hair to use in her debates. Madalyn Murray O'Hair represented the agnostic atheistic community. But after a while, he began to read his own material, and the Spirit of God began to convict him that what he was fostering as evidence for the descent of man and evolutionary development was instead evidence for creation. God wins. And I'd like for you to hear one of God's trophies, Dr. Jerry Bergman.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Just a few days ago, I spoke to homeschool kids, and in the homeschool group, I had a number of books offered, and one thing surprised me is one of the books that sold the best was this one here, which surprises me because it's one of the most detailed refutations of the apes as ancestor idea, that we evolved from apes. And that is a major interest of mine, that the major concern when we talk about evolution is not the evolution of bees or the evolution of other organisms like millipedes. The major interest is the evolution of man, right? That's really what we're concerned about. And it's kind of lonely in my area because, ironically, not very many creationists are worried or concerned or think much about the evolution of man. One of the major focuses today is on building models. And I'm not a model builder. I don't like to create models basically on some facts and some fiction. I prefer to look at evidence, purely evidence. And the evidence against human evolution from apes is just overwhelming. And that's why myself and Peter Line, you notice, is the second author, produced this book, Apes as Ancestors. And is the only, I only got 2 copies left, so I wish I had brought more, but in fact, I sold out and they went out of print just the past couple of weeks. So now they have to print some more if I can get them here. But at any rate, this is the only book ever published that deals extensively and clearly with human evolution. There are some books, brief books, that talk about human evolution, but they're 200 and 250 pages, and they briefly cover the field, where this book in detail covers the field, the claims for human evolution, by basically looking at what paleoanthropologists have to say, and especially, for example, I have my theory of evolution, and then you're another paleoanthropologist, you criticize my theory for good reasons, and then I turn around and criticize your theory. And so they do this among themselves, and so all we did is looked at the critics among paleoanthropologists and found that they had basically shown all the other theories, each other theory was not true. And so the summary basically of the book covers that. Now, Peter Line wrote a lot of the chapters. His, you kind of have to really get into there to understand it, but his chapters has a summary. I asked him to do a summary so people would know what the chapter is all about. My chapters, I've done I think 5 or 6 for the book, but my chapters are easy to read. So if you get a hold of the copy of the book, and we're going to bring some in, I think next week they'll bring some in here, so you'll have to come back if you want to buy a copy of the book. But my chapters are easy to follow, and one of my chapters is on Lucy. And I'm basically, with this PowerPoint, summarizing that one chapter. I could, of course, summarize each chapter, but that would take hours, so we'll just focus on one chapter. But